up, guys? Welcome to another episode of SpeedSim. My name is Andre.
And I'm E-House.
And today, this episode is sponsored by One Tigers. They make awesome masks. Eric has one on the channel, so if you want to check that out, head on over there and check out the One Tigers video. Today we're going to be checking out this holster that they sent us, but instead of just doing a basic review/overview, we thought we would include some other things into this video.
And we figured we would talk about, different types of holsters and different advantages and disadvantages that they're going to have for you on the airsoft field.
Right.
Ian and I did a video on this, ancient, way back when Gun Gamers first started, but I think we'll, now we've got more experience under our belts with all this type of stuff, too. We've got more holsters, we've got higher production values, and now we actually have an audience, so I guess
that is you.
Yeah, so I guess it bears redoing. So, to start with, we'll start with the holster that One Tiger sent us. Now, this is a pretty standard nylon holster. Now, nylon holsters have a couple of inherent advantages and a couple of inherent disadvantages. Now, the advantage of a nylon type holster is going to be that they're pretty well universal.
Yes.
You can use a nylon holster for anything from, say, a standard, M&P type pistol to, say, a Desert Eagle or a High Kappa, or they fit a wide variety of handguns, especially some of the ones that are more universal. This is more of a fixed nylon type. Nylon holsters also are generally MOLLE mountable. And so they'll either come with, some of them aren't, some of them will come with a drop leg platform. This one is a pure MOLLE mount, so if you want something that will mount directly to a battle belt or vest, generally for pretty cheap, you can do that pretty easily. Then also, if you run a weapon light, most nylon holsters, this One Tigers one, for example, is weapon light compatible. And then a lot of the universal, tornado type nylon holsters are all going to be weapon light compatible. Then they will also run suppressors. Most hard plastic holsters won't flex enough to allow a suppressor through. So if you want to run a suppressor or a muzzle brake or something on the end of your pistol, a nylon holster is going to be the easiest and cheapest way to do that. Disadvantages to nylon holsters, though.
Biggest disadvantages from both Eric and I's experience in playing is I've had one for about, I want to say about 6 months until I realized what the big disadvantage was. And I was playing in a game and I lost all my magazines. I kept putting in new ones and I lost them in the field, kept putting them in new ones. I had a bunch of them, but at the end of the day, I ended up having only 2 left because every time I would run and I'd crouch down or I'd do some weird maneuver, it would push the button and the mag would just fall out. Luckily, some people would find them on the field and give it back to me, but at the end of the day, I was like, oh, well, I wear all my mags. So that is a huge disadvantage when it comes to playing on the airsoft battlefield.
And if you're at a large milsim game where there's hundreds of people and it's a 35 to 100 acre plus AO, good luck finding those mags.
You'll never get them back.
No. So that's one of the big disadvantages of nylon holsters is because the material is flexible and it's not shaped to stand off from your magazine catch, it can very easily knock your magazines out when you're running around. The other big disadvantage is your draw speed. Most nylon holsters, some have mechanisms that you can adjust. This one actually includes such a mechanism where you can actually kind of thumb drive the button, but it's
not stiff enough for it to do it.
Yeah, the problem is most cheap nylon holsters don't go stiff enough with their material to make the snap thumb drive work, and then they'll also often have a buckle instead of a snap. This one has a buckle as a secondary, but you get the point. So the problem with that becomes, obviously, well, crap, if I want to get to this gun quickly, which often you do when you have a handgun, you're just going to be floundering with it, and it's not going to work out well. But again, they're very cheap usually. You can mount them anywhere very easily.
A variety of different colors.
Yeah, a whole bunch of different colors, and they will run a wide variety of handguns. So personally, I kind of moved away from nylon in my own field use just because of the inherent disadvantages it has. But if you're just starting out, and maybe some people run the retention lanyards for their magazines, which you can make very easily yourself, which will mitigate the issues, but that's something to keep in mind. So that's nylon holsters for you.
Moving right along, so we're keeping kind of the same price range. We're looking at the, little guy right here. This is a Kydex kind of slash plastic. It's not exactly Kydex.
Well, it's not Kydex. They're usually injection molded, hard plastic.
Yeah, they're hard plastic. Great advantage of these guys. They have a great retention. So they have a a finger drive, or what would this called?
You would call that basically that's an active retention mechanism that's activated by your trigger finger.
Okay.
So that's very similar to your Blackhawk Serpa type holster. And the Serpa really pioneeered that, and then other companies started doing the same thing.
So essentially, that's what you got right here. So once the gun clicks in, you pull this out, and you're gonna have the gun right there, right where you need it. Now, some disadvantage, I guess, would be you'd have to get a multiple of these. You get, like, if you have a P226, a Glock, a high cap, a 1911, you got to get all those for the different guns that you have. In this case, it does fit high kappas or 1911s, and it also fits a Glock as well. So it's kind of universal, so you can get away with putting in a couple of pistols in here. But for the most part, you're going to have a variety of these ones laying around. And what the great thing about these they're adjustable, so you can put them on your hip and rotate them exactly how you need them to fit on your belt, depending on how you draw.
You can also get molly mounts for them. You can get drop leg adapters. Especially if you get the real Serpa, there's a ton of accessories for those.
Yeah, so that's these guys. It's got, like you said, injection molded. It's got this active retention.
Another disadvantage of those, though, that crosses over from something that's been observed a lot in the real firearms community is that some people who aren't well practiced with the trigger finger retention mechanism, when they draw the gun, if they have their finger really curled up against the pressure, and depending on the gun too, sometimes their finger will go into the trigger guard. Now, it's not as big a deal in airsoft, because if you shoot yourself in the leg in airsoft, it's not going to kill you.
Right.
But there are some very famous videos out there of people drawing from Serpas and shooting themselves or having a negligent discharge. And again, not as big a deal in airsoft, but something that bears mentioning just because it's something to keep in mind with this type of holster.
Right. Another thing that I want to mention is it's not weapon light compatible.
Yes.
So
or suppressors.
So they don't flex enough for suppressors, and they definitely won't fit any sort of weapon mounted light that you have on there. You might be able to find some like these in the style that you might need. So if you have like a TLR or a Surefire or anything like that, there are a couple of
for some models.
So you be wary of what you got in your inventory. So when you do pick up one of these, again, these are relatively cheap. This guy right here is about $22 at our local shop,
and even the real Serpas are like $35.
Yeah, so they're not super expensive.
Okay, so another type of holster you've got is this is a wide range of holsters that can be made a wide number of ways, but basically what we're talking about is passive retention molded holsters. Now, there's a couple different ways to do this. This is a BladeTech holster, and this is made with 2 sheets of plastic, very much like the Serpa style holster or the active retention, but this doesn't have any kind of trigger mechanism or thumb drive mechanism to the holster. What this is it's just passive retention molded to the shape of the handgun it's made for. These can also be made of Kydex, and there's a lot of custom Kydex makers out there. Advantage of these is there's nothing between you and your handgun. You can usually adjust a tension screw on this type of holster, or if you get it custom, it's usually pretty well tuned from the custom maker for good retention. And what that allows is you have just enough retention to keep your handgun from jostling out, but when you want it, it's right there. The good thing about these types of holsters is there are so many varieties and so many different types that you can basically get whatever you want for whatever you need, and you can also get them custom made by a wide variety of people. But again, same disadvantage as the hard shell Serpa and retention type holsters, well, finger retention type holsters, is you're not going to be able to use one of these for all of your handguns. Now, there are some guns that are going to be cross-compatible, but in general, you need a different holster for every gun, especially with custom Kydex. Now, the BladeTech holsters, you can kind of get away with it. Oftentimes, the XD holsters, for example, will fit some FNX models. So it just depends on your guns that you have, and it depends on the holster. Custom Kydex FNS holster won't hold an XD, for example. But that's just another thing to keep in mind. Another disadvantage, though, is because you have no active retention, if for some reason you don't have your tension tuned well enough on this, or your custom Kydex maker didn't tune the tension well enough, then you do risk losing your gun.
Yep.
Now, I have not had that happen with any of the quality passive retention holsters I've had and taken the time to actually adjust the tension with, but that can be a disadvantage. You can also get these for any combo of weapon, light, or laser, again, if you get them custom made, generally speaking. But that brings us to another disadvantage, is price.
Yeah.
Now, a BladeTech type holster like this, that's pretty standard, not weapon light or anything like this, you can find these for 40 to 50 bucks, generally speaking. Once you get into custom Kydex, you're looking usually anywhere from $60 to $120, depending on the options you get, depending on who makes it, and depending on the thickness of the material you have it made with. And on other options, you can get it made in any color, you can get it made with any pattern of camo or any Kydex that's available. So it's really infinite options, but you get a different one for every type of gun that you have, and they are passive retention. But personally, this has been my go-to type holster lately just because I find them to work the best for what I want out of a handgun holster, which is nothing between me and my handgun and only enough protection to the handgun to keep it from getting dirt or grime in the workings. And they're also stood off from the magazine release, so.
Cool. All right, so the next type of holster that we have, and this is our last one on our list, is speed holsters. Now, these are generally found in the competition realm. You'll see them once in a while out in the airsoft field. I haven't seen too many.
This guy.
Yeah, you haven't seen too many of like any of the Costa, Lotus, or whatever videos where he does the
like tactical shooting,
right.
usually.
That's what I couldn't think of the word. You won't find those too typically on there. Most of the time, like I said, competitions. Now, what makes these great is the fact that they're pretty easy to use. You stick it in, and you lock it in, and now you have a complete range of motion. You can pull your hands. It stands up very far away from your body, as you can see. I mean, there's a lot of room for you to move, and it stands away. Again, it's made for competition, so obviously that is why that's there. And like the other holsters like this guy, you can move it any sort of way, whichever way you need it to, however you draw, and you can move it up and down, which is an added bonus depending how long your hands are and where you need it to go. Now, disadvantage, you can't put any weapon lights on here. I'm sure they have some out there that you might be able to put some weapons light. I haven't seen them, and I haven't seen too many people use them on competition or on the airsoft competition side because it's usually lit. They're usually doing all their competition stuff in well-lighted areas outside, like the Red Wolf Airsoft Surgeon collaboration. You see them, they're outside, well-lit areas, so they don't need lights. And then you see them indoors as well, they don't need lights. So they don't really build them around tactical shooters. They build them for competitions, hence why they're race holsters. Now, the way that you take it out is on the side here. I don't know if you can see that. There is a little like trigger style right there. And when you grab it, it just comes right out. Because as I'm pulling, I also have my finger extended far enough to hit this lever, and it comes straight out, which is fantastic for when you need to get to your pistol fast enough. Now, again, like I said, you won't find it on too many tactical shooters like Eric, for example. He won't put this on his just because he runs his pistols well retained, and he doesn't want it to go anywhere. Because, again, you have this really light kind of trigger here, and when you moving around or you get caught on tree branches, because he likes to run in the woods a lot, you're going to get caught on some branches, and that thing is gone, and you lost your pistol. So it's not ideal for tactical shooters. No. Now, what's great about these holsters as well is, like I said, it fits 1911s, and on two screws here on the sides, there's a little internal panel here. Pull this off, and it'll fit a variety of other pistols like Glocks, M&Ps, XDM40s, a variety of different pistols. So this is kind of more geared towards people who have a variety of different pistols that they use for competition. Not saying that all competition shooters have all sorts of different pistols, but some of them
might.
Yeah. So
I mean, look at Jerry Mikulek. That dude will run a revolver one time, an M&P the next, and then back to the revolver just to embarrass everybody.
So that's fantastic about these holsters. Now, biggest con, I would say, is price. Now, I did get this one on a deal that they were having on the website of eHobby Asia, I believe, where they're selling them relatively cheap. But once that deal was out, because they went like that because they were so cheap, if you go onto their website, this is JR Micro Holster, they're $160.
Yeah, for good ones.
For a good one. And
you can get the cheap ones, but
you're gonna run into some issues.
There are no good clones, really.
Yeah. So there is that kind of barrier between you and your holster as far as this one is concerned, because it is $160.
Another thing I want to mention that those have an advantage with, though, is also red dot mounting.
Yes.
So if you mount a red dot on your handgun, then this doesn't get in the way at all.
There's literally nothing in the way for that red dot.
Yeah, so you can run a frame-mounted red dot with that.
You can do it on the sight, or on the slide, I should say, in a frame. It'll work, and as you guys seen, I do have a frame-mounted red dot, and I use this holster because that's fantastic for it. Now, one thing that I do want to mention is for a lot of you airsofters out there, not too many real steel people probably watch our channel, but for those of you who do, for airsofters, if you do get into the custom realm of buying different grips for your high kappas, the 9-ball kind of grip with a weird trigger guard will not work in here. I can get it sort of to work. I did file a little off to make it in order to work in here, but it will not work. So you got to be very, very cautious on what kind of grip you buy. Most of the grips out there, like Airsoft Masterpiece, Airsoft Surgeon, Prime grips, they will all fit in here.
The standard TMs.
Yeah, all the standard TM kind of grips will fit in here, except for the 9-ball one. It will not work in here. So you got to be very careful when you are thinking about purchasing this type of holster and you have a custom raced out high kappa. So that is one other thing that I do want to mention as well out there.
One more thing I want to mention is we don't have an example of this here because I'm stupid and didn't bring it, but it's a retention holster that doesn't use a trigger finger retention and instead uses a thumb retention. Okay. Now, the GCode type holsters that are very much like this. BladeTech has some offerings like this. Pretty sure 511 also has some offerings they call their thumb drive. Now, a thumb drive or a thumb retention holster is going to be a holster that has a retention loop over the handgun until you press your thumb on a lever or a button, and that releases the retention loop and allows you to draw the handgun. In my mind, those have all of the advantages and disadvantages of this type of holster, except the disadvantage of your trigger finger going into the trigger guard. But also the thumb drive options tend to be more flexible when you want to get into weapon lights and stuff like that. So the thumb drive holster definitely gets an honorable mention for, in my opinion, being the best middle ground between a passive custom holster and an active retention trigger finger holster, because they're basically an active retention holster that you can get for more models and with more options, and they also get rid of the problem of your trigger finger possibly going into the trigger guard. So I want to recommend thumb drives for people who don't quite like just passive retention. I would say those are a strong option to look into.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it does have this kind of loop on top of the pistol.
Except it hinges forward with a spring once you press that thumb drive. My GCode holster that I use for my Cybergun 1911 actually is phenomenal. So I would definitely recommend those if you aren't quite comfortable with passive retention and you want just a little something keeping that gun in.
Now, what's the price on that guy?
Those will usually go for anywhere from $60 to $120, depending on what you're looking for, because usually they're made of Kydex and they're a very high quality holster and they've got that mechanism in there, but they're expensive. But I think, again, they have all the advantages of best of both worlds of this type of holster.
Again, with the G-Code, they do have the RTS system where you can mount it on your chest, on your hips, and on your leg, and a variety of different places wherever you need to see fit. So all you do is you click that button, pull it off, and you can put it on other different places of your body if you have those systems. But again, those cost additional money in order to mount them
extra
that much.
moolah.
Yeah.
But again, it's kind of that middle ground of the best of both worlds here, and you can get them for such a wide variety of handguns generally, and wide variety of accessories. So definitely bear those in mind as you're shopping.
Right.
Personally speaking, my favorite type of holster, like I said, is the passive retention, usually a custom molded Kydex holster. But the thumb drive is a very strong contender as well. What about you?
Okay, this is kind of hard for me to say my personal favorite. Obviously, these ones are not my favorite for a lot of different reasons. I have very expensive mags, and I do not need those to be launched. So that's why I ditched that a long time ago. My favorite for when to go out and play, and I want to just be able to use whatever gun I have available, I like this system, just because unlike Eric, he has two guns. He runs his primary and he runs a secondary. I just run with my pistols. So literally the only reason why I need a holster is in order just to put my pistol in somewhere so I can grab a flag, grab some sort of objective, and just run away with it. I don't need, too much retention. So I generally jump to this guy.
Basically, you use your holster the way I use my sling.
Yeah, pretty much.
Just to hold the gun whenever I'm not doing
because
something.
They don't make slings for pistols.
Nope.
So that is kind of where I'm standing. But my favorite holster personally, and it's near and dear to my heart, is this guy. Just because the deal that I got, I couldn't pass it up, and I love using it just because it's so easy to get in and out of my the holster, again, for objective purposes, and I know that it's secure in here. So if I had to go for one, I love this guy, but for ease of use, I like these guys.
And I think that's a
should
good
cover it.
roundup. Yeah, so I think that covers everything. So, once again, thanks to One Tigers for sending us this holster, and ended up
great
being
masks.
Yeah, great masks, and this holster ended up being a good conversation starter. Thanks as always to you guys for listening to our insane rambling.
All right.
So,
well, once again, guys, this was another episode of SpeedSim. My name was Andre.
And I'm E-House.
Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Peace.